Right, welcome back to TMS. The think tank edition of the show and African spirituality continues. Namhlanje. Today, in our spirituality corner, we'll be talking about the link between, if you've ever thought about it, spiritually and our relationships. And we will be unpacking the spiritual reasons why some marriages, relationships, as it were, and companionships do not actually work. Our African spirituality advisor, Umkhulusi Mkize, is here to help you and I better understand why the spark fades in our relationships, leading to, in most cases, breakups, divorce, and of course, separations. I mean, when we talk about spiritual reasons that can cause fights in relationships and even lead to separation and divorce, I mean, what exactly are we talking about? A very good morning, Sia.
Morning, Bavunjan.
Yaphila njani bhuti?
Awukhalaxes.
Masikhuluma ngakho lokhu uma silidalula lolu daba from the root cause of the problem, as it were, spiritually speaking, in that context, what are we talking about?
So when I'm talking about here on this episode today of the CMS is when a man and a woman, or a woman and a woman, or a man and a man have come together, right? Abadalo, our ancestors, like to pair people who are descendants of gifted people or who are descendants who are gifted themselves together. Okay. Like always runs with like, right? But that attraction closer to marriage or just after marriage, right, can eventually become repulsion because Lemimoya begins to clash. And the reason it begins to clash is because as individuals, right, my father's a traditional healer, which means I'm the descendant of a healer. Right. Okay? So I'm fine, but because he answered his calling. But had he not answered his calling, right, I would be most likely paired with someone who is also in a similar position where their parents didn't answer their calling. Right?
So
exactly. Like will always run with like. And Abadala bring this these two individuals together because it's easier for us to utisizwane if we both have the same spiritual background ekaya of being spiritually gifted. Okay. Right? And on top of that, it also means our children will also be spiritually gifted.
I get you.
But now because of apartheid legacy and colonization, a lot of our parents, when I say parents, I'm talking about the boomer generation. Right? They didn't or could not explore their African gifts, which means a lot of us, when I say us, I'm talking about maybe let's say 35 and under or 40 and under, right? Are left with being descendants of people who are gifted. Now the tricky thing is there's a difference between being a descendant of someone who was gifted and being a descendant and having a calling yourself.
Right, especially if the descendant you've come from has not answered their calling, right? That could have some ramifications, just as for you as a human being and in your spiritual relationships with whomever you choose as a partner, right? Where do then the cracks start forming?
Okay, so the cracks, how you will see the cracks beginning to form, right? In the relationship or the marriage itself. Number one are the fights. Right? Okay. The arguments, it becomes a very volatile relationship. Very out of nowhere. Like, you forget to put the cup in the sink, all of a sudden, you know?
Sure.
So very, very volatile fights, and they happen very quickly.
Right.
Number two is the intimacy dies. The desire, that spark, and that, you know, that thing, that desire to be intimate with your partner, desire to spend time with your partner, it fades away completely, and it dies, the spark dies, right? The third and final one is, I would say, you start to look elsewhere sometimes, right? And you start to begin to feel that your marriage is no longer, or your marriage or your relationship is not meant to be. That, it's just another...
was a mistake.
It's just a mistake. I'm wasting my time here, right? And you will find people, you will find healers, and you will find prophets who will convince you that indeed you are not meant to be because of the spark dying. When in actual fact, we don't take it one step back. Sitsi wait, wena uzalo ubani? Who are you born from? Right? Then you look at umawak. Then you look at, and if you want to truly understand your relationships and why you're struggling in a relationship, look at your parents.
Right.
Look at your grandparents. Why did your parents separate? Because being the descendant of someone who's a healer, Dr. Mkhize being a healer, my mother's also gifted.
Yes.
So if my mother and father separate, I need to look at that. If my grandparents separated, I need to look at that. But everybody just looks at divorce and say, it just happens. Now, I'm not saying that divorce is a bad thing. I'm saying, look, spirituality isn't enough on its own to make a relationship survive. But I'm saying, don't fight a battle on two fronts.
Right.
You can't be trying to overcome childhood traumas, deal with the romantic side, but also you're battling spiritual predispositions and spiritual generational curses.
Pick a struggle.
Right? Pick a struggle, sort this out, and then if you guys do break up, let it be because he or she chose to be a bad person.
Sure, let's bring you in on this very explosive conversation. I'm Namhlanje Kuseni. How is your relationship right now, whether you're married or not? How are you and your partners treating each other? Have you explored the idea that perhaps the friction that comes up between you guys has something to do with your spirituality? Either one wenu noma nina nobabili anqedanga umsebenzi kwakufanele wenziwe noma mhlamba bazali benu as umkhulusi Mkhize is saying kunezikweletu ezikhona ezingazange zigcinwe. As a result, those ikweletu are now filtering onto you, and that then filters onto your relationship. Let us know right now on 072 411 6528. I mean, how can a couple identify when the issues they have, Sia, in their relationship are spiritually motivated? We've just said it starts with the little fights. Beyond that?
So beyond that, you need to then look at the biggest thing is going to be isbong, right? Surnames are a massive thing, and because of the way apartheid legacy was set up and the Areas Act, a lot of us are going to be carrying some sort of surname issue, right? People pay lobola and they're like, but Amahlabiso weren't really done, our parents went off to sign, right?
Yeah.
That's an incomplete marriage. And then that incomplete marriage, and you're taking your father's surname, usuyabangwa manje. So lokbang, the reason why we call it ukbang was because there's a literal fight between your ancestors. Your mother's side of the family is saying, no, this child is ours. But then your father's side of the family is saying, but she's got our surname, right? Lokbangwa internally in you, right, is going to spill over into the relationship.
Right.
Now you're with another woman, same situation, right?
Yeah.
So you've got two individuals, ababangwai. Of course, there's going to be a lot of tension. And another one, which is very interesting to observe, is the reason why it's so important to know when you're with someone who's spiritually gifted, whether you're a descendant or you're a descendant that is gifted.
Right.
Because kwesinye isikhathi idlozi liyalotsholwa. So manje the person that is gifted. So if I'm born with a gifted spirit, or the woman I'm with is born with a gifted spirit, right? The big mistake people have done, I can't remember who did it years ago, there was a story or something like that, where they're like, no, we're both spiritually gifted, so as lobola. That's a waste of money. No. There's two rituals that sometimes need to be done.
Okay.
Ukuhlanganisa imimoya, or mina as the husband, ngilobole idlozi.
Ukuhlanganisa emoya before we are engaged, before we are to be married. When would that process take place?
So ideally you would want to do
during
it before,
the courting.
You'd want to do it before you get married, right? But in most instances, you'd only find out the need for it post-marriage when things have gotten difficult, and you'd go see a healer and you'd go speak to someone. Then they said, did you guys ever do the process of ukuhlanganisa imimoya? Right? Which is a goat here, a goat there, and you exchange halves of the goat neskhumba sakhona, and that helps to cleanse le mimoya as well.
Right.
And then leyo global idlozi is a very interesting one, because as umama ofika nekhwama yabo idlozi lesindawo most of the time lifika no mama.
Yes.
Kunedlozi elithize elifika no mama osekhaya, right?
Right.
So idlozi, if when awulobola idlozi, you only, because ilobola I pay for it, you as a person, right?
Yeah.
But we don't take out idlozi, which is inkomo. Vamsile by understand that it's inkomo emhlophe, right? Okay, and then idlozi iyalotsholwa.
Yeah.
You pay ilobola for ugogo or umkhulu that woman is working with.
Right.
Then that friction inside, that friction spiritually can be sorted out, because now you can spiritually connect. Because some men and women aren't spiritually connecting because you haven't paid ilobola for idlozi. Or if you're with a spiritually gifted woman, ikhwama zakhe azikakagezwa. So nowadays people are telling ukuthi no, gezi ikhwama ngenkukhu. No, ikhwama zigezwa ngenkomo with a white cow.
Yeah.
You see, because ikhwama ezingcolile that you've inherited as a woman, right? Because you can do umsebenzi wokuhlanganisa idlozi, ulobola idlozi, but you're still fighting.
Ikhwama. Yes. Right, we're going to take a quick ad break. Umkhulusi Mkhize, who is our African spirituality advisor, is in the building right now unpacking your relationships. The reason for divorce could possibly stem from spiritual, misgivings, things that were not taken care of. Are you suffering from that? Let us know on 072 411 6528. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us here on TMS on E on this African spirituality themed Tuesday edition of the show. Now, we are in conversation with our African spirituality advisor, Usia Mkhize, about some of these spiritual reasons why the spark, that thing in a relationship fades and leads to separations, right? And just before the breaks here, I was asking you off air, right? We hear this often, Uguti people struggle with their relationships, right? And then someone told me, Guti, well, perhaps it wouldn't be a bad idea, Guti nikunge amawele enu. Is that a thing? What advice would you have for people like that?
So akusizi ngalutho ukunga iwele or to bless iwele that you're born with if lelo wele alikakagezwa. Right? So before I can kunga iwele lakho, iwele lakho needs to be cleansed, it needs to be pure, and also needs to already be at peace where they are, or they need to be united with you. Because there's different types of iwele.
Yes.
Kunewele elizohamba nawe, right? A twin that walks with you.
Yes.
The person that is walking with you.
Yeah.
Then you are actual twins, where you survived and the other one passed away, right? And then there's the very rare phenomenon of the vanishing twin syndrome, where there's two in the womb and then or two zygotes, and then they kind of fuse together and then they form one. Right? Very difficult to pick up. Doesn't happen that often. Those people struggle the most with relationships because not a lot of healers can actually pick up that you are a twin, right? And they tend to struggle a lot in relationships because I'm dating you, but I'm also spiritually seeing and connecting with another person. So I become overwhelmed, and then those people, what they'll experience is a lot of ghosting, where the man or the woman will just disappear because they're like, shoo, hey. What
is he saying? Now people are going to blame Ghosta Abantu on spirituality. What? But this is a thing.
No, it is a thing. It is a thing. And when you do actually have a twin, maybe one passed away when you were older, one passed away in the womb, it is so important to cleanse for the passing of that twin, because you're one spirit in two bodies. If one is in the living realm, the other one is in the ancestral realm. Lo also hambili, the one that is late, is going to uzohlupha lo ophilai, because he's going to, they want to be reunited, and you can't travel back this way. The only way you can travel is to the ancestral realm. So sometimes what you'll find is that being with this twin who's alive, uthandana nalo muntu lo, they've got this other twin ombizaya, right? Every time you're with them, you're like, sure, I feel so sad, so depressed, my energy is so down, it's so low. That is because lelwele leli that is in the living ancestral realm, the one that's late, that has not been cleansed, right? That energy is being carried here, and uyamfuna lo, right? Ufuna lo ophilai. And it's so important to cleanse when you have a twin that passed away. And if the twin passes away at like say at our age, right? You actually both lie in the coffin together, and we say to the ancestors, can we please separate these two? And imimoya of the one that is late must not disturb the one that is that is living, because that is where the difficulties come from. And actually I was actually dealing with a client this week where the anxiety, the depression, and the suicide attempts, right? Until I asked them, did you cleanse the other twin that was late? And they said no.
Sure. Let's play your voice notes. We asked you how your relationships are impacted, given that your spiritual or cultural practices have not been taken care of. Let's roll them.
Hey, sanibonani. Hey William, mina ngiwabalile amadoda ngikhathele empilweni yami. Angazi ukuthi ngibale amadoda engaki empilweni yami. Ayikho relationship elastayo. Ayikho. And mina ngulo muntu lo yitshelayo ukuthi ufuna ukusettle down. Angazi mhlambe yiyo inkinga na.
There you go, Sia. What do you say to that? She's been through
Many
relationships. It's not working.
Well, it's very difficult because we don't have a lot of information from the voice note, right? So I would need to speak to her one-on-one so that we can unpack her family history because, yeah, there isn't any information really in that voice note as to what she's seeing, her physical signs and symptoms, her dreams, and actually why the relationships disappear. Very interesting, one of my clients in the previous week, right, would always have dreams of intimacy right before the relationship was about to end, right? And then we unpacked the family history, so
Right.
And the dreams of intimacy, a lot of times people say, Islam, not the case.
Okay.
That's saying, when you want to be intimate with other people before you're intimate with Mina as lako, which is umkhulu that she's born with.
Right.
So that's another reason why some people struggle with relationships, because you're trying to be intimate and love other people before you've been intimate and loved Iglozi that you are born with, which is carrying your gifts.
Sure, that is very deep. Let's roll the next voice note, please.
Ngiyanibingelela ka-TMS ngithi mina-ke webhuthiya indodakazi yami yona yashada yenziwa konke okwesiZulu kodwa umamezala wakhe azange enzelwe lutho for ukulotsholwa angeniswe esibongweni manje uthi naye-ke indodakazi yami-ke uzoqala enzelwe yena kuqala before kwenzelwe yona ngoba uma kwenzela indodakazi yami thu iyona ezoba umakoti omdala kulowo muzi.
There we go. More details there in that voice note. The surname issue again coming up as we had spoken
So
earlier.
she's saying that everything was done completely for her daughter, but the mother-in-law, nothing was done for her. So they're saying that before they can continue any further with her daughter, they need to wrap up first the things for her, right? Technically speaking, that mother is correct that they should be wrapping things up for her with Umawake, but it's really a simple process of ukuthathing imbuzi bandabadala. This is where we missed out on with the mother-in-law. Kwenzeka iphutha, we missed out on A, B, C, and D. Sicela ukushweleza lelo phutha, gazi nyongo mswane, you mix it together, ageza umamezala. Done, finished. And then they focus on the younger one. Her time came and went. It's unfortunate, it sucks, but it's life. You cleanse it and she must just deal with it. Focus on the younger one, her time is now, she can have everything being done for her. The fact that Umama Zala didn't have anything done for her properly, that's unfortunate. That was her husband's prerogative. That was her husband's responsibility to do, right?
Right.
But she should. That sin should not be falling. The new makoti should not be suffering for that consequences. Gezanu mamezala, focus on ulokuzana on her daughter.
And by Ukez Mamezala Nani, yourselves will find blessings for your own union in that marriage, right? In wrapping up, Sia, I mean, what sort of rituals or spiritual practices help reignite the spark in a relationship? Just in 30 seconds.
Reignite. Okay. First things first, I would say you should both cleanse, right? Both of you cleanse, remove everything, absolutely everything. Past relationships, past babies, past korobela, past everything, right? That is the best way to do things. If you can keep the spiritual energy exchange between yourself and your partner or partners, because this temple's corner, right? Then the spark will always be there, right? The spiritual spark will always be there. The spiritual spark begins to die, right? Even if, because I think it's important that I end on this note that umsamo can be fine, everything can be correct, but the spark can still die, right? If you're exchanging spiritual energy and you're taking what is in here to outside with other people, or you're not nurturing this, right? It's going to die. Behavior and actions and how you love one another is the thing that is going to maintain the spiritual spark and grow the spiritual connection. That's how you grow it and that's how you nurture it.
Yeah, because sometimes we are bad at relationships, so we can't be blaming ancestors.
No. If you've got a past trauma that you need to deal with, you need to deal with your past trauma. Yes, your ancestors will give you dreams which will tell you that you need to deal with your past trauma, and then you'll think, oh, maybe it's spiritual. No, your ancestors can tell you you need help psychologically and mentally. We just always think that when our ancestors communicate with us, it's a spiritual reason.
I get you, Sia. Thank you so much for your time this morning. That's where we leave it for today with our African spirituality advisor, Sia Mkize, talking to us this morning about the connection between spirituality and our relationships and how some spiritual aspects can affect our relationships in good and bad ways, hence leading to divorce and separation. We'll take a quick ad break. There's still lots more coming up here on TMS on E. Stay with us.